Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Geez, wow. That was, I don't know, unexpected. Hi, how are you? Here I am, still alive. I'm sorry that I was on hiatus. First time I heard that word, I had no idea what it meant, and it was used in regard to a TV show, sort of taking a break. How come TV shows and radio shows and stuff are the only ones who do hiatuses? Is hiatus used in any other context? I am taking a hiatus. Anyway, excuse me. Here I am. The thing is, these days you go in to have something, wires stuck in your heart and stuff and batteries in your chest, and it's a same day procedure, so you think of it. I was thinking of it heading in as just, a procedure, which was no big deal. That's what I was thinking. Initially, I was going to have the procedure on Friday and just do the show as usual on Monday. I think it was Susan who disabused me of that notion and told me to take a few days off. So I thought, well, all right, I'll take 2 days off. I don't know. And then it was apparent that even that was not necessarily wise. So I was sort of blindsided by the reaction I had to this procedure, because it really took the legs out from under me for a good week. A good week. So you can't go by, well, they let you out. He said I'd be out by the afternoon, and I was. So you think it can't be that serious, but it's just that they throw you out now. You can have brain surgery and be tossed on the curb within hours, I think. So anyway, I was a little surprised. I was surprised by how sort of foggy I was for a long time. My head wasn't working right, and how totally exhausted. And then I was surprised. I realize now I must have been in denial. I was surprised by the fact that there was pain. And what was I thinking? You're going to have this thing. It's not tiny, stuck in your chest, a foreign object made out of titanium, which includes a battery and a small computer, and it has, leads coming out of it, and the leads are going to be threaded through veins into your heart. And I was thinking I wouldn't have pain. What? Oh man, whatever, whatever it takes, whenever denial works in your favor. But I was a little taken aback by how I felt for the last week. I'm pretty much good to go now, although they would say not. They send you home with instructions of things to do and not to do, and anytime you get any kind of anesthesia, they tell you not to do not sign any documents. Important, do not drive. But this one had different. I've never seen some of the instructions that came with this procedure. Avoid. They have a list of things I was to avoid direct contact with. And you know what? I swear the first thing on the list is bingo wands. Bingo wands. First of all, I didn't know what a bingo wand was. So I'm thinking, how the hell can I avoid it if I don't even know what it is? On the other hand, having as a television reporter covered years and ages ago some bingo events, which always blew me away. I was always stunned by some of the stuff that I saw. But one of them was that there were, in fact, there were gizmos. There were things that people would use rather than a bingo wand, which is now something that I needed to be terrified of. So there goes my, bingo events are out. So I'm thinking of all those. What would that do to some, little old lady who loves to do bingo at the church, in the church basement every few weeks? And she goes in for this same procedure, and she comes out, and the first thing she sees is, do not come into contact with a bingo wand. And she thinks, oh my God, my whole life is over. I can't, my entire social, how am I going to see my friends? What do you mean I can't, and they don't tell you beforehand that a bingo wand is going to be something you can't go near. Anyway, bingo wands was first, which just blew me away. I mean, followed by a whole ton of stuff. Ham radios. Now, I figured the odds of me coming in contact with a ham radio are not great, but also jackhammers. Again. And I was told in no uncertain terms, excuse me for this. Now, this is left over too. My throat's not right. I cannot operate an arch welder. Well, all right. I should avoid body fat measuring scales. Let me tell you, I have avoided body fat measuring scales without having any medical procedures. Who the heck wants to know how much fat you got in your body? It's a number you don't want to see. So those I've been avoiding anyway. It says avoid electrolysis. Jeez. Well, I do. It's painful, and there's other ways of getting rid of unwanted hair. They're painful too. And avoid stun guns. I kid you, these are all the things that are right. And powerful stereo speakers. So there goes my going to a concert or something. I don't know. It's just odd. It was an odd bunch of warnings that came with this surgical procedure, which did give me some merriment, I want to say, in the course of my pain. However, I finally, just 2 nights ago, feeling finally more like myself, I read the booklet that comes from the manufacturer of the device that now is part of my body. And dear Lord, I mean, that one has a list so long that it's like you can't even, I'm afraid now of walking into a kitchen. It's unbelievable. It has to do with magnets. Don't ask me. But I'm there you go. Anyway, okay, enough already. Oh, it is so weird because you're lying on the operating table. Okay, one more thing. You're lying on the operating table, it's before they put you out. And there's all these people bustling around. They're sticking, things in you. They're positioning you. They're, but there were at least 4 lovely women who were working on me. And then a guy approached, and I knew it wasn't the surgeon because I met the surgeon. A guy approached, these are all masked, figures. And he introduced, hello, I can't remember, Bob. And Bob from Medtronics. And I thought, so when they're sticking a thing in you, a representative from the thing maker is at your surgery. I didn't know that. So Bob was there, and I don't know. I said hi. Although it was funny when he said I'm from Medtronics, because I said Medtronics. I mean, that was the first I'd heard that it was a Medtronic device that was going to be put in me. I said, boy, that brings back memories, Medtronics. And he said, why? I said, well, my father, I think, was one of the first people to have one of your first gizmos, because it was way back in the 60s. My dad had one of your first pacemakers. And he said, yeah, man, that would be one of the first. And I said, it was a Medtronic. And so that company name is something that I remember well. And my father was so impressed by this device, which was, he felt, keeping him alive, that he thought this new gizmo is something that I should invest in. And so he bought a bunch of Medtronic stock. I said to Bob, who's looking at me as I lay on the operating table, I said, he bought a bunch of Medtronic stock, and guess what? Yeah, it went way up, because he bought it early before anyone else knew about Medtronic. I said, so I want to thank you guys, and now here am I, the second generation of my family, although I don't have any stock. Anyway, I just had to say that because I thought it was funny. And then the next thing I know, I was, of course, being cut open and having things stuck in me. I have now a lot of titanium in my body. I have it in my foot. I have it in my back. I have it in my chest. I have it. Geez. It is. I was thinking about what my skeletal remains will look like. They'll be interesting. I mean, my skeletal remains will look like a body that was well lived in. I mean, that had its traumas. I was trying to figure out how many surgeries I've had. I think I was just doing it in my head. I think 20 in my life. 20. I mean, things where you go in, you're in an operating room, you get knocked out. And I didn't count dental surgery, although technically that's surgery. Yeah, 20. I was telling my sister, and she said, geez, or something to that effect. I've only had one, she said. So I think I'm an outlier in my family, and probably most people. Most people I don't think have had 20 surgeries. And I say enough already. I am done. Jeez. Okay, I'll stop. I had no idea I wanted to talk so much about this. I have been, by myself quite a bit. My son has been wonderful. Coming over, walking the dog, taking care of me a little bit, taking me to and from. And, but mostly I've spent a lot of time by myself. And man, have I been reading. I've just been reading books. I'm starting to gobble up, 2 books a week. I'm now on an 800-page book, which I was sort of loath to begin because that's just such a big, fat book. And I am ripping through it. I mean, I'm really into it, just want to say. So an 800-page book has to be particularly good for you to take on that kind of a commitment. Just saying. All right, enough. Now, one of the things I did while recuperating was watch the January 6th hearings. And wow. Yeah, I will join, I'm sure, the chorus of people who are impressed as hell by what this committee has done. I mean, really, I don't think anybody was expecting them to put on the show that they have is beautifully done. I mean, if you stop and think about it, congressional hearings have become unwatchable because all that happens is, various members grandstand, and it becomes more about them. Witnesses just sit there. It's nothing new is learned. It's just sound bites are created and bases pandered to. And man, this January 6th special committee has acted with such extraordinary control, seriousness, and it sure as hell ain't about any of them. They have kept their eye on the prize, and they are laying things out in such a compelling manner that even if you're a news junkie, and many of you are, you have been transfixed. Going in, you might have thought, I know all this stuff. Because, it's been leaking out left, right, and center. So we know all this stuff. Yeah, you knew most of the stuff. But it had never been laid out in such a way as to prove the culpability of one Donald Trump and others, but also that this was in no way, shape, or form a spontaneous event, a crowd that just got a little overworked. It's been fascinating. And, I have all the same reactions I'm sure you do. Yeah, so I'm watching it and thinking brilliant. But, of course, the people who should be watching it probably won't. But a few will. And, in fact, after refusing to carry the first hour, the prime time hour, first few hours, Fox News did air and carry the next daytime hours, as I imagine they will do tomorrow and Thursday. And so that's got to be getting to a few folks who were bamboozled. I don't know. I'm hoping. And knowing that Merrick Garland is watching, I am also hoping that this will be followed by the Justice Department stepping in and actually indicting some of these traitors, because that's quite clearly what happened. An obvious, concerted attempt to overthrow the duly elected government of the United States. And one of the players being a wife of a sitting Supreme Court justice, which is another fascinating sidebar. And I heard that Ginny Thomas has said she'd be thrilled or happy or can't wait, very excited to talk to the committee. And yet, as far as I know, she hasn't. She wants to set things straight. Yeah. Okay. The reality, what we already do know about Ginny Thomas, is that not only did she make herself part of this traitorous effort to overthrow the government, but her husband, Clarence, was the only member of the court to vote for Donald Trump in his effort to shield all of his communications from the January 6th investigators. Every other justice, including, for God's sakes, Alito, Gorsuch, it was a no-brainer that Trump's effort here was ludicrous. But Clarence Thomas said, Trump has a point here. Thank God 8 other justices wiped out his unbelievable vote. And why would Clarence Thomas do that? Well, among the communications that Trump was trying to shield from the January 6th committee were messages between, guess who? Clarence Thomas's wife, Ginny Thomas, and Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows. So, whoa. Pretty amazing. There is so much to talk about in regard to this. Ezra Klein has a piece in the New York Times in which he suggests, and I think he is absolutely right, that if Watergate happened now, Richard Nixon would never have resigned. American history would be totally different. And I think he's absolutely right. He says if Watergate, obviously he resigned to avoid impeachment and conviction once he realized that there were a lot of people in his own party. There were actually Republicans who were going to vote to convict him, to impeach and convict. And it was because those Republicans went to him and told him this is what would happen, that he resigned. That would never happen today. Republicans would not have voted to convict. Fox News, which didn't exist back then, would have had his back. All the other right-wing disinformation centers would have been working overtime. And Richard Nixon would have completed his second term. And American history would have been altered. The other event that Ezra Klein, recent event that Ezra Klein says would not happen would not have happened if it were happening now, is the 2000 presidential race. Bush versus Gore. That ended up stymied in Florida with votes being counted and recounted and hanging chads and making its way to the Supreme Court of the United States, where the court decided the election. And no surprise, along party lines, it was Bush, they said, who won. And Gore conceded. That would not happen today. If the Supreme Court today tried to tell us who won an election, we wouldn't have it, would we? And the difference is that when Watergate actually happened and when Bush v. Gore actually happened, there still was a willingness in our political culture that was evident in both political parties to put the stability of our institutions and our governing system first. So those two things now, that's gone. The conditions, as Ezra Klein says, the conditions that helped us meet those past challenges as a nation no longer hold. So, incredible. I happened to watch a documentary on Martha Mitchell. Remember her? I'm talking to you old people. The wife of John Mitchell, the Attorney General for Richard Nixon. And at the time, in real time, the general sense of the American people and the media, which she was portrayed as a nutcase. A nutcase. She was saying all these outrageous things. She was saying that, like, the Secret Service had, like, drugged her. She was saying the Secret Service had actually manhandled her and kept her from making phone calls, and she said she was literally being held hostage. She was imprisoned because she was wanting to speak out about what she knew about Watergate. And we all, including her husband said she's nuts. He knew otherwise. She was a piece of work. But she was telling the truth. And we didn't listen. She was just easily dismissed back then as a hysterical woman, as a Looney Tunes. And in the documentary, you see Helen Thomas, the reporter, who later, because she kept reporting up until into her 90s, was also eventually dismissed as a loony old lady. But Helen Thomas thought she had something that she was saying. And Helen Thomas did not turn a totally deaf ear to what Martha Mitchell was trying to tell all of America. And at the end of the documentary, they say that it gave rise to something called the Martha Mitchell effect, which I had never heard. But the Martha Mitchell effect is when someone who was thought to be delusional at the time was actually telling the truth. Now stop and think of all the times in history that has been true. People who are desperately trying, tugging on the sleeves of the masses, of the media. Hey, I need to tell you this. This is what's happening. And they're dismissed as lunatics, right? And then give it a little time. they turn out to be right. Oh, Barbara, thank you for reminding me of this. One of the things in the testimony in the last January 6th hearing was the renowned former federal judge and conservative attorney, who actually was the main attorney, wasn't he? The main attorney for Bush v. Gore for Bush. Judge Michael Ludig. He was one of the people sworn in at the January 6th committee. And for those of us who were watching and who had been watching and who had been transfixed, he was like, I mean, he was like killing the buzz. He would be asked a question, and I kid you not, there was at least 5 seconds of silence, at least, before he slowly pulled the microphone toward his lips and began to speak. So slowly and so deliberately that you wanted to scream. I had a friend text me saying, oh my God, I can't bear this. And then I texted back, I know he's being extraordinarily careful. Not a word went out of his mouth that he didn't think about 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And I want to thank Jonathan for sending me this. Because what happened is a lot of other people, oh, don't tell me I lost it. So many other people had the same reaction. And in this day and age, you know, we're not used to people talking slowly. No, we need things fast, quick. If it takes more than 10 seconds, we're out the door. And so this old guy was making people tune out. I knew it. People were tuning out left, right, and center because he was not operating at the pace that we now require. And somebody tweeted out that it was actually pretty wonderful that someone was clearly trying to be so careful. And incredibly, the old judge, this is after the hearing, Judge Ludig, tweeted back. And here's his tweet. Geez, that goes on a bit. Well, he does go on. Here's his tweet. I'll read it faster than he would. Here's Judge Ludig after his testimony. What you could not know and did not know, but I will tell you now, is that I believed I had an obligation to the select committee and to the country, first to formulate, then to measure, and then to meter out every single word that I spoke. And he's got dots in between all these words. Every single word that I spoke carefully, exactingly, and deliberately, so that the words I spoke were pristine, clear, and would be heard, and therefore understood. I believe that I had that high responsibility and obligation. And he goes on and on and on, on and on and on. Hang on. He heard that some people on social media were saying that he'd had a stroke or something. And he disabuses us of that. And he says, and some people said his face was red. And it turns out he'd been helping his daughter move the day before out in the sun. And he said it was 90 degrees. He says, if I were chiseling words in stone that day, it was imperative that I chisel the exact words that I would want to be chiseled in stone were I chiseling words in stone for history. For better or worse, I was as compos mentis as I have ever been last Thursday, but please keep checking on me from time to time. Thank you. So he shows a sense of humor. He was very aware that history was being made. And let us be clear, he also said something I have been saying for years. He said that Donald Trump and the Republicans who aid and abet him are a clear and present danger to the United States. And coming from a Republican of such high standing and of such, all you have to do is look at his history to see that he has served that party throughout his life. And coming from his lips that the party, many members of the party, including the current leadership, are a clear and present danger to the United States is just huge. I mean, a case in point. A columnist in the Pennsylvania Capital Star, Patrick Coulican, has a piece in which he says it is quite clear that right before our eyes, the Republicans are building up a paramilitary wing. Driven by many in their base now thinking that political violence is and will be necessary. So for anybody suggesting that some of us are getting a little overheated, I think it's really important to understand what an extraordinary and dangerous moment we are in as a nation. You are aware, I'm sure, ever since I read Ludig, I feel like I am talking more slowly. I'm sure that you saw that the Texas Republicans meeting in their big state conference in which they set their platform, have codified. Why can't I find it? I wanted the exact words, and I'm not finding them. Okay. Hang on here. Oh, that's too bad. I can't find it. But they have gone on record as part of their platform saying that this is pissing me off. I'm sorry. I'm not willing to accept that I don't have this. I'm sorry. This is Cullen. Stop it. Stop it. Stop this. They don't want to hear you ripping through papers and all this stuff. Where did it go? I know I pulled it out. Oh, dang it. I mean, they went on record as saying that Joe Biden was an illegitimate president. This is the Republican Party of one of the largest states in the country. They further went on to say that homosexuality was, this is where I wanted the thing, I wanted to get the words right, that homosexuality was I'm going to get it. I'm sorry, I am pissed off. That homosexuality was like an aberrant, no, I don't have it here. Fuck it. But you're right. Right back to, as if the last 30 years had never happened, that it was an aberrant kind of choice, lifestyle choice. I kid you not. They're on record as saying that. They also jeered and booed their own Senator Cornyn, who tried to speak to them. And you know why he was jeered? Because he took part in that effort to find some bipartisan common ground on potential gun legislation. Make no mistake, we are in an exceedingly dangerous time. Thank you, Jonathan. He sent me, and it won't open. My idiot thing won't open it, but thank you. I appreciate the effort. David writes, going back to something else I said, talking about our bones. I shattered my leg long ago, plates and screws and one of those Tinker Toy bear trap external fixator things. On x-ray, you can still see a long line of little holes going down my tibia where things were screwed into it. It looks like a flute. Doesn't bone grow back, though? Huh. Someday someone's going to dig it up and play Lullaby in Birdland. Thank you for that. David goes on, I followed the Grateful Dead around in a wheelchair that year, had a case of beer strapped up under my seat at Star Lake. They, of course, search you inside out before they let you in. When they asked me what I had up there, I told them it was my colostomy bag. They waved me in. Oh, that's great. That's just great. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Oh, man. Bob in Braddock writes, every time I think of Pittsburgh being stronger than hate, I seriously laugh. when the Facebook pages of KDKA, WTAE, and WPXI made posts to celebrate Juneteenth yesterday, on Father's Day as well, a large majority of trolls wrote Happy Father's Day or Juneteenth shouldn't be a holiday. I even saw a couple of posts saying, let's go Brandon. And Trump won the election. These are the same people who celebrated East Pittsburgh police officer Michael Rothfeld being acquitted after killing Antoine Rose. But then turned and mourned the Tree of Life synagogue tragedy by saying Pittsburgh is stronger than hate. Because even in that moment, Jews were considered more white than Jews, I suppose. Because a lot of these same guys, they don't like Jews either. The same guy who killed all those Jews is a guy who would be freaked out at Juneteenth as well. And speaking of Juneteenth, where did I find this? You know, I am losing. This shows that maybe my head is still not quite right. Because I swear I had some Juneteenth stuff I wanted to share that was hysterical. Here it is. A number of businesses trying to get in on Juneteenth and make it like so many other American holidays, just a way to make money. They came out with merchandise. Walmart was one, and Walmart had Juneteenth ice cream. What that has to do, I don't know. But get this. Walmart also was offering a black tank top modeled by a white woman, and that black tank top had these words on it. This was Juneteenth merch. These were the words on the t-shirt modeled by a white woman on Walmart's website. Because my ancestors weren't free in 1976. Yeah, I know. I know. You're thinking, what? I mean, the absurdity of a white woman wearing that shirt because my ancestors weren't free. And 1976? Clearly, they meant 1776, right? I don't know. Whatever it was is as unbelievable, despicable, outrageous. By the way, it's out of stock. I suppose people did scarf that baby up. And here's another, Bob, you'll appreciate this. The Children's Museum of Indianapolis advertised a Juneteenth watermelon salad in its food court. You cannot make it up. Cannot make it up. God almighty. There was a piece I read. I think this was in the New York Times. And it's talking about how media, I mean, even good journalists are just unsure of how they're supposed to cover this moment. That everything they learned in journalism school is not necessarily working for them now. That sort of both sides of not appearing to call things out, but just letting the so-called facts stand where they may. The reality is, it's very hard for journalists who are, doing the first writing of history, the first that what you can't just cover things like it's normal politics now. You just can't, because it's not. So a scholar at Georgetown University who has studied democracy around the world, who says that authoritarianism doesn't happen overnight. She says it happens like a slow drip of infringement on freedoms and breachings of long-standing traditions. Stop and think of all of that we have experienced in that regard in the last 4 or 5 years. And we look forward to perhaps later this week, Roe v. Wade. Settled law being pulled out from under us. And so a group got together of editors and reporters and journalists and scholars trying to figure out how to be a good reporter in these frightening times. And this panel reached a consensus that you had to be aware of what they came up with, 7 basic tactics that authoritarian movements use to pursue and then maintain power. Here are those 7 basic tactics. 1, they attempt to politicize independent institutions. Well, they've done that. Check that baby off. Check it off. Every single one has been politicized. Even vaccines have been politicized. Even masks have been politicized. Everything is politicized, let alone independent institutions. Number 2, they spread disinformation. Number 3, they aggrandize executive power at the expense of checks and balances. One of the reasons Bill Barr was attracted and fully happy to serve Donald Trump was Bill Barr has an authoritarian mindset. He believes that the executive branch should have more powers. Number 4, authoritarians quash criticism and dissent. Oh, you mean like cancel culture? You mean like death threats? You mean like making people fearful of saying anything? Fearing for their families? Number 5, they specifically target vulnerable or marginalized communities. Yeah. Trans kids are now the big threat to their America. Children. Mm-hmm. And we know all the other. Round up the usual suspects. gays and Democrats, black people, Jews, brown people, Asians, immigrants. Number 6, authoritarians work to corrupt elections. Well, the Republican Party is about as busy doing that as, and again, all out in the open. And number 7, they stoke violence. One of the stories that happened while I was on hiatus was the police finally doing something so right and proactive, stopping those, what were they, Proud Boy types. They were the same fascist white nationalists who had put Charlottesville together. Stopped a truckload of them from creating a potentially murderous riot at a gay rights event. Where was that? Idaho? Wyoming? I'm forgetting. Someone saw these guys getting in the truck. Someone called the cops and said, there's something suspicious here, I think. And damn, the cops went in and arrested them before they could do what they intended to do, which is create fear, violence, intimidation of gay people. The people they arrested had come from, I can't remember, how many states? 10, 12 states? These people are organized all over. They gather and they get ready to do their thing. They were all dressed exactly alike. They had weapons, long sticks. They had a smoke bomb. They had marching orders. This is, again, that paramilitary wing that is serving the now white nationalist, neo-fascistic party called the Republican Party. And something Jamel Bowie wrote, which I so agree with, talks about all our old leaders, the gerontocracy that runs this country and runs the Democratic Party. And they don't get it. They grew up in a different time. They can't wrap their heads around what's happening. And they're not reacting with the seriousness that they should. Bowie points out that all these guys, the president, Pelosi, all of them, their entire career in politics has been in an era when bipartisanship and consensus and policy making, when it still sort of worked, when things were less ideological, when things were, and that is not the case anymore. And they have not pivoted. They keep saying stupid stuff like my good what Biden at the National Prayer Breakfast said something about my good friend, Mitch McConnell. He's not your good friend. You got to stop that shit. We need young people. I'm sorry, but these 80-year-olds have got to get out of the way. The times are too frightening. We need energy. We need strength. We need people who have more of they have more skin in the game because they're going to live their lives in whatever happens if these fascists take over. I've heard many an old person say, God, I'm glad I'm old. I won't have to live in this. Well, a lot of people will. Let them. Give them the reins. Okay, I see my time is up. All right, well, it's like riding a bike. I say to myself, see, I had thought, geez, maybe I won't be able to do this, but it's like riding a bike. I thank you for being there, and I'll be back tomorrow. Susan should be joining me, and we'll try to get things back up and running. Okay? Have a good day.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.